Troubleshoot printing problems. Photoshop. Troubleshoot printing problems. So what about troubleshoot printing problems? By the way, this document provides troubleshooting steps to help you resolve general printing problems in Photoshop. And for solutions to specific printing problems, try searching the Adobe Support knowledgeable. And before you can troubleshoot the problem, determine its cause. And determine the cause of the printing problem. We have steps. How to determine the cause of the printing problem? The first step, you should create a 2 multiply 2 inch RGB and 72 ppi image and print a line in the image and print it. And if that image prints correctly, it's possible, by the way, that your profile is damaged. And you should resolve problems printing a specific image from Photoshop in this document. After that, if the image doesn't print correctly, go to step 2. Step number 2. Print another type of file, for example a plain text file, and from another application, such as Microsoft Word or TextEdit. And in that file, print it correctly. The problem isn't system-wide, by the way, and it is specific to Photoshop. However, the way Photoshop interacts with the system can affect printing performance. And go to step 3 to eliminate some system-related causes of the problem. And if the file doesn't print correctly, the problem is system-wide. It isn't specific to Photoshop or your files. And the problem, by the way, could be low system resources and insufficient memory on your printer, or a poor connection between your computer and the printer. And should go the step 3 to eliminate some likely causes of the problem. Step number 3. Restart your computer, then print your image. And if the image prints correctly, your system, by the way, could have been out of memory of resources. And if the image doesn't print correctly, go step 4. Step number 4. Turn off your printer for at least 15 seconds to flush its memory, and then turn it back on and print your image. And if the image prints correctly, the printer's memory was too full. And if the image doesn't print correctly, go to step 5. Step number 5. If you are using a network printer, print from another computer, and if the image prints correctly, the computer you first tried to print from could be enabled to connect to the printer or the network correctly, and contact your network administrator, consult your network documentation, or contact the printer manufacturer to help resolve your problem. And if the file doesn't print correctly, go to step 6. Step number 6. Print your image to another printer. By the way, if the image prints correctly, the first computer you printed from could be unable to connect to the printer communication. Hardware or memory problems can prevent, by the way, a computer from connecting to a printer. And make sure that the printer is turned on and connected properly, and then run a self-test on it to make sure that it's working correctly, by the way. For instructions and see the documentation that came with the printer, or contact the printer manufacturer. And if you are using a network printer, you should consider contacting your network administrator firstly for assistance. And if the file doesn't print correctly, resolve problems printing any file from any application in this document. How to resolve problems printing a specific image from Photoshop. How to resolve problems printing a specific image from Photoshop. By the way, if you have problems printing an individual image from Photoshop, work through this next set of tasks in the order they are presented, print after each one. And how to reset the printer preferences in the image. How to reset the printer preferences in the image. You should press the spacebar on your keyboard before you click File, then Print. And this process, by the way, resets printer preferences that have been written into the image. Step number 2. Check these options in the printer driver. In print setting, make sure that the paper size is accurate. and then choose the correct paper feeding option for how your paper is actually being fed into the printer. And if you select the incorrect option for how the paper is being fed, your image, by the way, can be cut off, or print in part, or print on the wrong part of the page. And after that, check the appropriate paper handling using some Epson drivers as an example. Select paper handling and make sure that the destination paper size is accurate to your paper. And if not, select the scale to fit paper size and change the destination paper size to the appropriate size, and then deselect scale to fit paper size if desired. And other printer manufacturer, by the way, can have something similar. And after that, check printer setting to make sure that the media type is correct. And after that, deselect 16-byte output in case your driver doesn't support 16-byte printing. And step number 3. Save the image as a new file. Save the image as a new file. Resave the document by choosing File, and then choose Save As, and giving the file a new name. And the Save As command causes Photoshop to rewrite the file. And step number 4. Step number 4. Resize layers or flatten your image. Resize layers or flatten your image. By the way, when you print an image from Photoshop, only the content that is visible on screen is printed, and resize layers or flatten your image to improve performance when printing. And important here now, resizing layers or flattening your image removes the editable content, by the way, such as type and smart objects, before proceeding with this task. And make a backup of your existing image. To resize layers, we have steps. 2 steps only. Step number 1, you should select the layers that you want to resize. Step number 2, you should choose layer firstly, then choose resize, then and choose an option from the sub-menu. For more information about resizing layers, see resize layers. And to flatten your image, choose layers, then choose flatten image. And for more information about flattening your image, see merge and stamp layers. Step number 5. Print a composite of the file. Print a composite of the file. By the way, if you encounter problems printing an image with color separations, print a composite of the file to determine if a color plate is the problem. And when you print a composite, all the colors, by the way, print on one plate only, and regardless of whether individual colors have been selected. And if the problem with your specific image presets after performing the above steps, your file, by the way, could be damaged. And it's also possible that the way that Photoshop interacts with your system is causing the problem. And proceed to resolve problems printing to any printer from Photoshop for further troubleshooting steps. How to resolve problems printing any file from any application. How to resolve problems printing any file from any application. By the way, if you have problems printing any file from the computer, contact Adobe Support and Microsoft Technical Support or the printer manufacturer, and make sure that the printer is on, and check the physical connections between the printer and the computer. And the solution could be as simple as reconnecting a loose cable, by the way. And also note that any recent changes to the computer system that can affect printing, such as the following: updates of your hardware or software, and new hardware or software, and upgrade or update of your printing system, and removal of software, and installing or removing fonts, or connecting to a network, or other changes to your network configuration. And after that, rearranging or cleaning up of files on your hard drive, and keep a record of changes made to the system to help you troubleshoot printing and other problems. And if the problem presets, work through the other sections in this document as applicable. And see also these print troubleshooting documents from Apple, Mac OS, and Microsoft Windows. How to resolve problems printing to any printer from Photoshop. By the way, if you have problems printing from Photoshop, work through this set of tasks in the other. They are presented printing after each one, by the way. And how to vary that you meet or exceed the minimum system requirements for Photoshop. For an update list of system requirements, visit System Requirements Photoshop. Number 2, use an update printer driver. Use an update printer driver. By the way, many printer manufacturers frequently update their software drivers. And if you haven't updated the printer driver recently, contact the printer manufacturer for an updated driver or download one from the manufacturer website. Number 3, delete temporary files from the system if you use Windows only. Excuse, temporary files can cause Photoshop to freeze or appear to freeze when you print. And you see the following for details. Delete temporary files using the disk cleanup utility if you use Windows XP, or delete temporary files using the disk cleanup utility if you use Windows 7 and Vista. Number 4, ensure that the printer has enough memory. Ensure that the printer has enough memory, and ensure that the printer has enough memory to print all page elements and to print at 300 dpi. Make sure that the printer has at least 2 megabytes of available RAM and to print at 600 dpi, and make sure that the printer has at least 4 or 6 megabytes of RAM. And for instructions on determining available printer memory, see the printer documentation. Number 5, recreate the instance of the printer Mac if you use Mac only, and to recreate the instance of the printer. Number 1, go to print and scan in the system preferences. Number 2, select the printer and click the minus button. Number 3, click the plus button. Number 4, select the printer or enter the printer's IP address and then click add. Number 6, recreate the Photoshop preferences file. Recreate the Photoshop preferences file. By the way, recreate the Photoshop preferences file to eliminate problems that a damaged preferences file can cause. And for instructions on how to recreate the preferences, see these steps. Reset Photoshop preferences. And note here please now, when you use this solution, Photoshop creates, by the way, a preferences file, and you lose custom setting associated with your current preferences file. However, the file you rename in step 3 is your original preferences file if you determine that the preferences file is not causing the problem. And then you can restore your custom setting by returning the preferences file to its original location, by the way. Step number 7, move the image to a local hard disk. Move the image to a local hard disk. By the way, if the file is on a removable drive, for example USB hard drive or network drive, move it to a local hard disk. And Adobe recommends storing files on a local hard disk when you open and save or print them to reduce potential problems and damage to your files. Number 8, create additional free disk space. Make sure that plenty of free hard disk space is available, by the way, on your system drive or the drive on which you have the file stored. And Adobe recommends that free space, by the way, is equivalent to 3 to 5 times the size of the file you print. And to create more space, you should search for and delete temporary files on your computer, and then clear your temporary internet files or remove unnecessary programs from the computer. For instructions about clearing the temporary internet files, see the documentation for your internet browser. For instructions on removing programs, see the documentation for each program, by the way. And also you can also free up disk space by passing the spool file on Windows, and which stores temporary files to the system drive during printing. For instructions for bypassing the spool file, see the documentation included with Windows or contact Microsoft technical support. Step number 9, print to a local printer. By the way, if you print to a network printer, try printing the file from a computer that is connected directly to a local printer. and if the file prints correctly. Network related issues or problems with your printer or AC device drivers could be the cause. Contact your network administrator, by the way, and consult the documentation for your printer, or contact the printer manufacturer for assistance. Step number 10. Run Photoshop while no other applications are running. Run Photoshop while no other applications are running. By the way, some applications or services could cause problems when running concurrently with Photoshop. And before printing from Photoshop, and disable startup items that run when your computer startups. And for macOS, startup into safe boot, and the safe boot mode maximizes available RAM and reduces the possibility that another application or background service conflicts with Photoshop, by the way. For instructions or assistance, starting your computer into safe boot mode, and see Mac OS X starting up in safe mode, and Apple Support's article HT 1455, or contact Apple Support. For Windows, see disable startup items service and Windows for details. Number 11. Optimize the performance of Photoshop. Optimize the performance of Photoshop. See optimize performance. And after that, how to resolve problems printing to a PostScript printer. How to resolve problems printing to a PostScript printer. By the way, if you have problems printing from Photoshop to a PostScript printer, work through the tasks below in the order they are presented, printing after each one. Disclaimer, some of these solutions, by the way, require you to change the printer driver properties, and the locations for specific properties vary by printer and by printer driver. Therefore, Adobe Technical Support cannot provide, by the way, detailed information about the location for each property, and contact printer manufacturer or refer to the printer documentation for more information. And number 1, you can't use an updated BBD file. By the way, a PostScript printer description BBD file described the capabilities of the PostScript printer for settings such as margins and color and resolution, and incorrect or outdated BBD files can increase, by the way, print times or cause other problems. And configure your printer in the printer's control panel with the BBD file that the printer manufacturer recommends. And to obtain a BBD file for your device, you should contact the printer manufacturer. And number 2, set up the printer driver to output optimized PostScript code Windows only, if you use Windows only. By the way, if you set up the printer driver to output PostScript code that's optimized for portability, and in binary format, the amount of scaling the driver must do is minimized, thus preventing it from losing portions of images. And to set your printer driver to output optimized PostScript code, do the following. We have steps. Step number 1, you should choose Start, then choose Control Panel, then Open Printers. Number 2, right click the printer and choose Properties from the context menu. Number 3, select the General tab. Number 4, select Printing Preferences and then click Advanced. Number 5, expand the document options and then expand the PostScript options. Step number 6, set the PostScript output option to optimize for portability. Number 3, install a printer driver that's compatible with your operating system if you use Windows only. By the way, if you use a network printer, install a printer driver that's compatible with the operating system, and the print servers don't always provide drivers for operating systems running on client computers, and so you could be using a printer driver that's appropriate for the print server's operating system, but not for your computer's operating system. And to install a printer driver that's compatible with your operating system, you should do these steps now. We have steps. Step number 1, choose Start, then choose Control Panel, and then Open Printers, like the previous. Number 2, right click the network printer and then choose Delete. Number 3, double click Add Printer and then click Next. Number 4, Select add a local printer and then click next. Number 5. Select create a new port. Number 6. Choose local port from the type of port menu and then click next. Number 7. In the port name dialog box, type the path for the print server and printer. For example, print server name and print name and then click OK. Step number 8. Follow the remaining on-screen instructions to install a driver that matches the brand and model of your network printer. How to resolve problems printing to a non-PostScript printer. How to resolve problems printing to a non-PostScript printer. By the way, if you have problems printing from Photoshop to a non-PostScript printer, work through the tasks below in the order they are presented, printing after each one. Number 1. Ensure that the printer has enough memory, and ensure that the printer has enough memory to print all page elements, to print at 300 dpi, and make sure that the printer has at least 2 MB of available RAM, and to print at 600 dpi, make sure that the printer has at least 4 to 6 MB of RAM. For instructions on determining available printer memory, see the printer documentation. Number 2. Enable VGA mode for your video card if use Windows only. VGA, by the way, VGA mode is a startup option that forces the system into standard 640 multiply 480 16 color VGA mode by using a video driver that is compatible with any video adapter, and enable VGA mode for your video cards to resolve problems related to your video card and its drivers. To restart Windows into VGA mode, we have 5 steps only. Number 1. Quiet all applications firstly. Number 2. You should choose start and then type ms configure in the search text box and press enter. And number 3. Click the boot tab. Number 4. In the boot tab, in the boot options section, select base video. Number 5, click OK and restart Windows. Note here and be careful, please, here now. Open restart, you could be notified that the system configuration utility has changed the way that Windows starts, and if so, click OK. And when the system configuration utility appears, click cancel to exit the utility. We have steps again here now. Number 1. To re-enable your original video card driver. Number 2, choose start, then type ms configure in the search text box and press enter. Number 3, click the boot tab. Number 4, in the boot options section, deselect base video. Number 5, click OK and restart Windows. And by the way, if you can print correctly from Photoshop using the Windows VGA driver, then the driver for your video card could be damaged, by the way, and outdated and or incompatible with your printer driver or Photoshop. To obtain and update video card driver, contact the manufacturer of your video card. Number 3. Use the printer's PostScript mode. If the printer has a PostScript option, you can't use the PostScript mode. For details, see the printer documentation.